Hello and welcome to the first 5 minutes with podcast, a new interview series with industry movers and shakers across Asia Pacific. Today we meet an industry mover, James Robinson, the newly installed Managing Director of APCO Worldwide in Shanghai. Having worked with APCO in Asia and the US, James is no stranger to China. In his current role, he'll lead the Shanghai office of APCO Worldwide and retains a global function, helping clients navigate the issues and stakeholders that have the ability to accelerate or derail their growth agendas. James has led several of APCO's most significant global assignments for leading corporates, non-profits and government clients, supporting research, engagement, public affairs, communications and reporting programs. Since 2008, he's led the firm's work for the Clinton Global Initiative. Before arriving in Shanghai, he's held senior posts with APCO in China, Indonesia and New York. James, welcome and welcome back to China. You're obviously new to this role, but not to China, not to mainland China. What are the biggest changes confronting the communications and the public affairs industry that you've seen in recent years and that you're seeing now you're back on the ground in mainland China?
Well, thanks, Craig, and very happy to be with you here today. There's sort of three things that I've observed since coming back into the China market, trends that I think are really defining the communications public affairs industry here. I think, firstly, the move from market entry focus to market optimization. The clients that we're working with today are a lot more sophisticated. I think there's the global playbook that a lot of these companies have been practicing in Europe or the US is being brought to China, and we're even seeing companies who are creating a second headquarters here in China, and replication of functions across the board. The second thing is speed, and I guess this is characterized as much through digital as anything else. That when I was formerly here, things took time. Now that's not the case anymore, and the market is a lot faster, and certainly with the rise of WeChat, that's true not only for consumer communications but also for corporate comms and public affairs. And then I think the third thing, and this won't surprise you, is the intense competition for really good people, competition between the consultancies but also with in-house, and trying to both find good people to bring in, but also grow good people and hold on to them within the consultancy environment.
Exactly. Politically, and APCO obviously is a comms and PA agency, but politically next year is going to be huge. We'll see a new president in the White House in early 2017, and in China there's the 19th Party Congress. What will be the big issues from your perspective that we should be focusing on in terms of that global US-China relationship next year?
Yeah, again, a couple of things that I would comment on. I think you're seeing this in the US, but to some degree in markets in Asia Pacific and even here in China. I think the first thing would be the rise of nativism, localism, and how that's affecting policymakers everywhere. The need to address inequality, to push back against unbridled globalization, and I think the real world impact of this movement is the effect it's going to have on trade policy, whether it's TPP or the ASEAN-China free trade agreement, and whether those can actually proceed. The desire by nation states or regions to move away from federalism, and so certainly we've seen that with Brexit. Defense policy, I think the South China Sea, the Korean Peninsula will continue to be very much on the agenda next year. I guess the second thing would be sources of economic growth. I think both in the United States, while the economy is doing better, but certainly here in China, as policymakers look to find fresh investment and how to unleash capital that will create jobs, whether that comes from innovation, infrastructure spending. I think one of the most interesting areas is to look at outbound Chinese investment and and the path that in the U.S., the path that the next administration takes to inbound Chinese investment, and whether it's a welcoming environment or not. And then I would say the third sort of trend would be sustainability in the environment, and we're seeing great progress in this area, and we should be on the lookout for what happens next in the wake of the COP Paris Climate Agreement.
As Managing Director and as kind of operational head up there in Shanghai, what will be your big focal points in terms of business development and service offering so that you can ride that wave that you foresee?
For a company like APCO, I think we've got to differentiate ourselves from local competition, and frankly from the big marketing ad agencies. And I think our unique value add can be really to be champions locally and really smart about what's happening on the ground within government, within stakeholder groups, but then connecting that to what's going on globally. I think it's really hard for either the local players or those really big holding companies to be as nimble as we are, and we need to make sure that that's front and center in how we're selling ourselves. Secondly, digital. We have a program, Digital in Our DNA, which is making sure that all our people are really smart in using digital and social media, not only again for traditional communication assignments, but also for influencing and engaging in public affairs accounts. And then the third thing is I think again the connectivity between what's happening with our China client here in China, but also back at headquarters and what headquarters is expecting. And I think APCO is pretty well placed to help bridge the markets in a smart way.
James, thanks for that. Our time's up. Thanks for joining me for 5 minutes with, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in.